Hey there, welcome to Hiker Homily in my latest episode. In keeping with the last one, talking about that loadout question, I'm trying to do some Hiker Homilies now that hopefully, some of my earlier ones, that's what I was going for too, are helpful to folks who are even if you're kind of been into it for a while, you can always learn something new. I've been backpacking since like 1980 was about when I got my start when I was a kid. And I still learn new things. If you have that attitude that you can learn new things all the time, you'll always be open to learning new things. But also for new folks who are just getting into the hobby of either camping or backpacking and things like that, there's always things you can pick up if you're willing to listen and put ego aside and learn a few things. So a couple of things came up on some of the social media sites that I decided to, hey, that's a good jumping off point to impart some decent information. So here's this first problem, as you can see here. Whoops. So this is a cooking pot that's made for cooking. How in the heck did you burn a hole through it? Is the person's question. How did this happen? Well, more than likely, the person, when a few people started asking clarification questions, kind of clammed up, probably because they were embarrassed, probably because they did it. But more than likely, they put the cooking pot on their backpacking stove, which are that backpacking stoves are very direct flame applied heat. Okay, so you don't put backpacking gear on that open flame if they're empty. Because they are very thin and light. They're made to be thin and light. And when you put stuff inside of it, either food or water, heat diffusion is what protects it from melting through. What happens is, instead of the heat being concentrated right there where that flame is hitting it, the heat is getting dispersed because there's material inside of it. Usually water or whatever sauce that you put water inside the backpacking meal to make a sauce and things. Okay, and that is enough to kind of spread the heat around instead of concentrating it right where that flame is, and so that's how you protect your pot from that. Now, if you only put a little water in it and then you've got it going and you lose track of time somehow or whatever, and that water evaporates and it's empty, you're going to burn through your pot. Or if you just put it on there and, okay, I'm going to go, it does not take a long time. You put that pot on that open flame, the time it takes you to get over here, open the bag up, get it ready, pour some water in it and things like that, mix it up, and then you go to your pot to pour it in the pot, you've already burned through it. Now, if you're camping and therefore carrying like steel or cast iron cooking implements, that's not the same thing. They can handle some direct heat for a little while. They'll be all right before they get, they have such a huge melting point that you're not going to burn through a cast iron or a steel pot. But generally, you're not going to be carrying those. A cast iron, you know how heavy those are, even the small ones. You're not going to carry that backpacking, more than likely. I know some who do. I know. But those little backpacking pots and things like that, they are not made for that kind of direct heat. They need to have something in them, water or the food with liquid and things, to spread that heat around so that it doesn't melt through. So there you go. Okay, so this next one is a big one as far as I'm concerned, and it's a tough one. Even veteran backpackers sometimes, especially long distance through hikers, I've seen them make this mistake just because you are so tired. There are indeed days when you are through hiking that you're so exhausted at the end. Any kind of extra setup, extra steps is just a pain in the you-know-what. The neck. That's what I meant, the neck. But it is just do I really have to set up my food prep area over here? And then when I'm done, I have to walk over here where my tent is. And it seems silly because, oh my God, that's only, if you're doing it by the rules, that's only like 100 feet, for crying out loud. But I just walked 23 miles today, some of it with elevation changes. I am tired. I'm hungry. I just want to sit down. I just want to eat. So here you go. You set up your thing in your tent vestibule, sometimes even inside the tent itself. Well, there are multiple problems with that. Number one, you are indeed trading convenience or comfort for safety. There's a lot of safety issues there. All it take these backpacking tents, there are some protections there, but for the most part, they are not made well to deal with flame. So if you knock your open flame over, and even for a small amount, the very littlest that could happen is you've now probably melted a small hole in the bottom of your tent, and that's not great. The worst that could happen is you've set the doorway area on fire, and that's your exit to get out of this tent that you're sitting in. So not a great idea. Not a great idea to do that. Also, you have to watch out for if the tent is a good one and you've got all the coverings and stuff, carbon monoxide can build up. And next thing you know, you fall asleep, and then you've got an open flame there when you've passed out. It could just get worse from there and things like that. And the other one that a lot of people don't even think of, but it is, one of the main reasons why they tell you you should do your food prep and food storage and all that kind of stuff away from where you're actually going to camp is because the smell of the food is going to attract even the lingering smell. Once you're done cooking and you've washed things and you've put it all in whatever storage you're putting it in, whether it's a Bear Vault or a bag or whatever, and things like that, and you're supposed to put it somewhere else, that lingering smell from your food prep and your cooking is going to attract varmints. Everything from little tiny mice to bears are going to come in, if you're in bear country, to investigate what that smell is. And they have fantastic olfactory skills. Bears, mice, raccoons, they have a fantastic sense of smell. They are going to come in to investigate it. Now, if that sense of smell is literally coming from your tent, because that's where you prepped your food and stuff like that, that's what they're going to zero in on. Instead of 100 feet away, sniffing around where you actually were supposed to cook your food and all that kind of stuff, and maybe you left your bear bag or your canister out that way, it's going to mess around with all that and probably leave your camp alone because that's where the smell's coming from. But if the smell is coming from your tent area because that's where you did your food prep, they're going to zero in on that, and that's what they're going to be messing around with. They're not just going to sniff around your camp like some animals will do out of curiosity. They're going to come right to that tent and start sniffing around and pushing on the tent because they can smell food. Okay? So that's one of the bigger reasons. It's not just a safety issue because of if you, all it takes is a mistake to set things on fire and stuff. But if nothing else, even if you don't spill, if you have a spill and you've spilled food on your tent, you're never going to get that smell out of there for that trip. Absolutely not going to happen. So now your tent, the thing you're sleeping in, smells like food. So no matter where you go on how long of a trip it is, animals are going to zero in on that tent because they can smell it and things like that. So don't do your food prep in your tent. No matter how tired you are, no matter how inconvenient it is, set up a separate food prep area from where you are camping and sleeping. It shouldn't be near water sources, so you're not contaminating that. It should just be in like a little area that is safe for you to operate your stove. It is. I know it sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, but there's a reason why it sounds like a lot, because it's a safety thing for all that stuff. You're avoiding carbon monoxide poisoning. You're avoiding accidentally damaging your tent with fire. You're avoiding possibly burning to death if things get really bad, and you are especially avoiding or trying to mitigate anyway issues with varmints coming into your camp, specifically trying to get into your tent because they can smell the food there. So food prep elsewhere, the general consensus is about 100 feet away from your camp is where you should be doing it. There you go. Comments, questions? Have you ever had that kind of issue? I know it's tough. I know on some of my longer hikes, I have gotten lazy, and there were sometimes there just wasn't a choice. I remember on the Lost Coast Trail, The first night that we camped was close to the edge of a cliff, and there was very specific places, and there was not 100 feet away to do food prep. We all agreed food prep, we're all going to do our food prep in this spot over here, and it was maybe 30, 40 feet, but that was it, because our other choices were off a cliff or way back down the trail, and actually on the trail, and that's not, you're not supposed to be doing that either and stuff. So the group that we were with, that I was with, we just picked this one spot as far from where our tents were set up as we could get it, and that's where we did all of our food prep, all of our eating, and things like that. And that's we had canisters, because you're supposed to carry one on the Lost Coast Trail. That is bear territory and stuff, and that's where we left all of our canisters and any of that kind of good stuff that has a smell that could attract them. That's where we put it and things like that. And we didn't do any food prep or have any food in camp. It wasn't strict 100 feet away, but it was as best as we could get and things like that. And it was tough, though, because, man, we were tired that first day, getting through the first small tide zone and stuff. It was exhilarating. It was neat, but tiring. And now we have to go over here and cook, clean things up. And I have to come out, back over here to finally get to bed. It's just, so it is, though. It's hard to do. It takes some self, get that gumption up and do it. Self-control. And yeah. So there you go. All right. As always, comments and questions below, or you can email me here. And I hope you guys had a great summer. We're now into the fall when I'm doing this. This is October. We're into the fall, and it's kind of nice. There's already snow in the Sierra. That's a kind of a good sign, right? That's going to be some nice water sources come spring. Up in the Sierra. Nice. Other than that, thanks a lot, you guys. Appreciate it for sticking with this goofy channel I do. And I'll catch you next time.